I learned the value of grinding when the world was asleep. There's a silence at 2 a.m. that strips everything away. The excuses, the noise, the illusions. My first job was delivering newspapers. While the city still smelled of asphalt and coffee. My hands were raw, my feet blistered. Every paper I tossed, heavier than the last. By 16, I had a second job, stacking shelves at a grocery store. Nights stretching into mornings. People asked why I didn't sleep. I told them I had bigger plans than their comfort. Those early nights taught me more than any classroom ever could. I watched the city breathe while I worked. Street lights flickering. The distant wail of a siren. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery down the block. Every sense sharpened. Every thought became a calculation. I learned to notice patterns in people, habits in life, opportunities hidden in plain sight. By observing the world while it slept, I gained insights others would only notice decades later. It wasn't easy. My body begged me to stop, to surrender to comfort. Nights blurred into mornings, fatigue relentless. There were moments I fell asleep standing, leaning against the counter, a mop in hand. I discovered the truth about endurance. It isn't just physical. It's mental, emotional, spiritual. Every task, no matter how small, became a test of will. The pain of exhaustion reflected exactly how far I was willing to go for my future. I also learned the subtle art of time leverage. While others wasted hours scrolling or complaining, I was experimenting, learning, building. My mind never rested. It planned, strategized, executed. I jotted ideas on scraps of paper, tested them quietly, iterated obsessively. By sunrise, I had already completed a day's worth of work. Others couldn't dream of tackling until afternoon. The early hours became my playground, my proving ground, my secret weapon. Even as I grew stronger, I realized something unsettling. Grit alone isn't enough. Motivation is fleeting, inspiration temporary. The body will rebel, the mind will doubt. That's when I discovered the brutal lesson hidden in every midnight job. Your limits are illusions. They exist only until you confront them. Hour after hour, task after task. Until you stare exhaustion in the eye and refuse to blink. Every paper thrown, every shelf stocked, every dish washed became a symbol of commitment. Each small victory compounded into confidence. I started measuring success not in money or praise, but in minutes survived, tasks completed, nights conquered. And those minutes taught me a principle that would define my life. Mastery is claimed in silence. In hours nobody watches. In relentless pursuit, when the world is dreaming. Then came the night that changed everything. A regular shift turned extraordinary. When I solved a problem nobody else could. Fixed a broken system. Earned recognition that felt surreal. It wasn't the money, it wasn't the promotion. It was confirmation. All the silent suffering, all the grinding, all the lonely hours were worth it. And yet, even in that triumph, a question lingered. If a single night of relentless effort could transform an ordinary job into a proving ground, what heights could be reached if every night were seized this way? What would happen if ambition refused to bow to fatigue? If drive eclipsed comfort? If you claimed the hours most squandered? Because when the city sleeps, that's when the relentless are born. And the real question isn't whether you can survive the night. It's whether you can rise from it, unstoppable. The moment I realized ambition could outpace exhaustion came on a night I wasn't supposed to succeed. It was 1:30 a.m. Fluorescent lights buzzing above me as I organized inventory at a warehouse. That smelled of cardboard and oil. Every muscle in my body screamed to stop. Every thought whispered, "Go home, sleep, tomorrow is another day." But I didn't. I had made a commitment to myself to take the hours nobody valued and turn them into advantage. I began noticing patterns others ignored. The way the forklifts moved when the floor was empty. The way shipments arrived with tiny inconsistencies. I started creating a system, jotting notes, mapping routes, predicting errors before they happened. It was methodical, obsessive, almost insane. By 3 a.m., I had restructured the workflow, corrected mistakes, and completed tasks that usually took a full team. By dawn, the silence wasn't empty. It was a laboratory. Every decision, every adjustment, every small improvement compounded into a growing edge over everyone else. That night taught me something crucial. Fatigue isn't weakness. It's a filter. Only the disciplined, the focused, the relentless survive it. The world sleeps. The body tires. The mind protests. And yet, when you push past the scream of exhaustion, you reach a clarity most never experience. I realized, if I could master myself in the quietest, loneliest hours, the rest of life would bend to my preparation. By 4 a.m., I was exhausted, but my mind was alive, in a way few can comprehend. Ideas flowed, solutions emerged, confidence solidified. Then came a small victory. A shipment corrected, without anyone noticing. A supervisor praising the results the next morning, unaware the work had happened in the unseen hours. That recognition didn't matter as much as the proof to myself. I could outwork anyone, even when every part of me wanted to quit. But mastery isn't born in victories. It's forged in repeated confrontation with failure. Weeks later, another night, another system, another shift. And everything went wrong. Equipment failed, shipments delayed. A mistake I made, compounded under pressure. I could have walked away. I could have blamed the world, the fatigue, my lack of support. But I didn't. I stayed, analyzed, corrected, adapted. And by sunrise, I had not only fixed the problem, but built safeguards that would prevent it from ever happening again. Those nights' successes and failures taught a brutal truth. Consistency beats talent when the world sleeps. The people who win, the people who build, the people who achieve, are those who refuse to surrender. When everything inside screams yes to quitting, and every night I survived, reinforced a lesson that would define my career, my mindset, my life. The hours others waste are your weapon. And yet, even after mastering fatigue, after learning to move when the body says stop, a deeper challenge emerged. What happens when the grind no longer builds only skills, but begins shaping the person you are? Who do you become when every night is a test, every task a battlefield, and your identity forged in solitude? I realized the hardest battles weren't against time or exhaustion. They were against the version of myself that wanted comfort, safety, normalcy. It happened on a night that seemed ordinary at first. Midnight again, the fluorescent hum above, the smell of cleaning chemicals in my nostrils. The world around me, silent. But inside, my mind was a storm. I had been grinding for months, accumulating small wins, building routines, creating systems that no one else could see. And yet, a question kept haunting me. Was I becoming stronger or just busier? That night, I pushed myself past every limit I thought I had. I ran calculations, organized schedules, tested processes, worked through every distraction. My body trembled. My eyes burned. My mind felt like it was fracturing under the weight of focus. And then it happened. A moment of clarity, so sharp it cut through every doubt. Success isn't measured by effort. It's measured by transformation. If grinding changes nothing inside you, all the hours are wasted. But if the grind reshapes your character, rewires your resilience, then every ache, every sleepless hour, every lonely victory compounds into something unstoppable. I thought back to my earliest midnight jobs. Delivering papers, stocking shelves, washing dishes. Those were not just survival. They were training. Every blister, every ache, every lonely hour, teaching me something simple and terrifying. If I could endure when the world slept, I could endure anything life threw at me, awake. And yet, endurance without reflection is just pain repeated. That night, I realized reflection is what converts effort into strategy, pain into insight, hours into mastery. By 3 a.m., I began a ritual I still follow today. Reviewing every task, every choice, every failure, every small victory, and asking the brutal question, what did I learn, and how can I push further? This was my turning point. Success isn't just outworking others. It's outlearning yourself. And in that silent, lonely hour, I began drafting the framework that would govern every challenge, every opportunity, every decision I would face in life. But the real test came a few weeks later. A shipment that should have gone smoothly fell apart. Equipment failed, deadlines compressed, supervisors panicked. Most would have frozen, walked away, blamed circumstances. I leaned in. I applied the lessons of reflection and relentless effort. I stayed until 6 a.m., rebuilt the workflow from scratch, solved problems nobody even knew existed, and delivered results that stunned my team the next day. That night proved a principle that would guide me forever. It's not about the first failure. It's about what you do in the hours immediately after. And yet, the victory wasn't without its shadow. Every time I conquered one challenge, another, larger one, loomed. The grind was no longer just about survival or skill. It was about identity. Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when the body protests, the mind doubts, and the world sleeps? That question gnawed at me, promising that the next night, the next test, would demand more than effort. It would demand transformation. The nights started to shape me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Midnight wasn't just a time on the clock. It became a crucible. Each hour tested patience, focus, and the stubborn refusal to yield. I created rituals that made discipline automatic. Lights out at 10 p.m., wake at 1:30 a.m. 2 hours of focused work before the world stirred. Cold showers, early workouts, journaling in the dark. All became tools to sharpen not just my body, but my mind. Every act, no matter how small, compounded into a force I could rely on. When chaos arrived, by the time the city stirred at 6 a.m., I had already accomplished more than most would in a full day. Emails written, systems analyzed, problems solved, ideas refined. And the strangest thing happened. Success began to follow the pattern of my preparation. Milestones I had only dreamed of: efficient workflows, promotions, recognition. were no longer the result of luck. They were the natural byproduct of relentless execution in the hours no one else valued. Yet mastery is never linear. There were nights when fatigue broke me. Nights when mistakes I couldn't foresee threatened to undo everything. I remember one particularly brutal night. The shipment I was managing went completely off course. Deadlines collapsed, every error landed squarely on my shoulders. I could have surrendered. I could have rationalized failure. But instead, I stayed. I dissected every misstep, rebuilt systems under pressure, and emerged not just with a solution, but with a plan that prevented failure from ever repeating. That night cemented a truth that no book or mentor could teach. Your real growth lies in the storms others avoid. These hours also taught me the importance of observant patience. While others rushed, I watched. I noted small inefficiencies, patterns hidden in routine, moments where intervention could produce disproportionate results. Midnight gave me a vantage point. The world slowed, distractions vanished. Clarity emerged. I began turning observations into action, and action into advantage. Every shift became both lab and battlefield. Every task, a lesson in strategy and endurance. And yet, even as my efficiency grew, a new awareness emerged. Hard work alone wasn't enough. Intelligence, strategy, timing mattered equally. You can outwork anyone, but if you misread the environment, if you miss subtle signals, your effort can vanish like smoke. That realization forced me to sharpen not only my body and will, but my mind, the quiet, analytical part that thrives in solitude and pressure. By sunrise, after nights of exertion and reflection, I felt invincible, but also aware of a deeper question. If discipline and endurance can transform ordinary nights into extraordinary leverage, what happens when every night, every action, every decision compounds into a life that demands more than you thought you could give? What does it take to become unstoppable? Not just in a moment, but in the very fabric of your existence? The true test came when the grind started to demand everything: time, energy, comfort, and even parts of who I thought I was. One night, weeks into a relentless schedule, I faced a challenge that could have broken me. The warehouse system I had meticulously organized began failing in ways I had never predicted. Alarms blared, shipments collided, and every minute of delay multiplied pressure into panic. Most people would have thrown up their hands. I didn't. I leaned into it, knowing this was no longer about completing tasks. It was about proving something to myself: that I could remain unshakable when chaos was absolute. I worked methodically, breaking down problems into pieces, analyzing every detail. In the silence that only 3 a.m. can offer, my body was screaming, my mind fatigued. Yet something deeper kicked in. Instinct, honed by countless nights of repetition. I noticed patterns nobody else would have caught. The subtle inconsistencies in the system, the weak links that could cause future failure. Every correction I made wasn't just about saving a shipment. It was about proving that preparation, discipline, and relentless focus could bend reality itself. By the time the sun started to peek over the skyline, the crisis had been averted. Not perfectly, not without cost, but it was solved. And in that quiet moment, I understood a principle that would define the rest of my life. The world rewards the person who refuses to quit. In the hours when everyone else surrenders, it's not the victories themselves. It's the proof that you can endure, adapt, and overcome under pressure. But the most profound realization came hours later, when I reflected in solitude. Success achieved in exhaustion is different from success in comfort. It builds a confidence that can't be taken away, a certainty that your limits are far beyond what you imagined. Every night, every challenge, every sleepless hour was stacking slowly, imperceptibly, into a force that could not be ignored. The small victories, unnoticed by anyone else, became the foundation of unstoppable momentum. And yet, even with this clarity, a new tension emerged. Mastering the physical, the tactical, was one thing. But what about the mental warfare? Doubt, fear, procrastination. The creeping sense that maybe all this effort wouldn't matter. Those were battles fought in the mind. The question became, if you can outwork the world, can you also outthink it? Outlast the doubts that no one sees? And maintain unwavering conviction when your own mind is the enemy? The mental battle revealed itself in subtle ways at first. Hesitation, second-guessing, the small voice whispering that maybe I had done enough. But I learned quickly, the mind is far more dangerous than fatigue or physical strain. It can convince you that giving up is reasonable, that comfort is safe, that ambition has limits. One night, staring at a spreadsheet of errors and misaligned shipments at 2:30 a.m., I felt that whisper grow louder. Every muscle ached. My eyes burned. And yet, I understood. The mind would only allow me to quit if I let it. I began developing rituals to strengthen mental endurance, alongside physical discipline. Meditation in darkness, deliberate visualization of success under pressure, journaling not just what I did, but why I did it. I rehearsed scenarios in my mind, failures, crises, impossible deadlines, and imagined myself navigating each flawlessly. By 3:30 a.m., while the city slept, I had rewired my brain. Doubt became data. Fear became feedback. Hesitation became a signal to act. I realized the same hours I spent working were equally hours spent training my mind to be unbreakable. The payoff came faster than I expected. On a night when the warehouse faced simultaneous failures, a shipment missing, inventory miscounted, deadlines collapsing, I stayed calm. While others panicked, procrastinated, I executed with precision, my mind sharper than it had ever been. Every decision deliberate, every step calculated, every adjustment preemptive. The results were extraordinary. Not only did I resolve the crisis, but I built systems that made future errors less likely, multiplying efficiency, reducing chaos. That night proved a principle I had long suspected. Mental toughness compounds exponentially with repeated exposure to controlled adversity. Yet, mental endurance isn't abstract. It's learned the hard way. I remember lying awake at 5 a.m., exhausted but exhilarated, realizing that the toughest opponents weren't external. They were inside me. Fear of failure, impatience, the seductive ease of mediocrity. Each night I conquered these internal adversaries, the less they controlled me. And slowly, the impossible became routine. the overwhelming became manageable, and I began to see life through the lens of relentless capability. But mastering the mind brought another, more haunting question. If you can survive exhaustion, failure, and doubt, what happens when the stakes rise? Beyond the warehouse, beyond the midnight grind, to the larger challenges of life? When every decision could make or break your future, could the lessons forged in darkness carry you through the daylight trials? The first true test of mental endurance came when opportunity and pressure collided in a way I hadn't anticipated. It was the night I was handed responsibility for a critical project, one that could define my reputation, my career trajectory, and my confidence in everything I had been building. By 11 p.m., while the rest of the office had emptied, I was alone, with spreadsheets, logistics plans, and a mountain of variables that seemed impossible to control. The city outside was silent. My body was fatigued. My mind raced. And yet, every lesson from the midnight grind, the discipline, the endurance, the mental rehearsal, was ready to be applied. I approached it like every crisis I had faced. Break it down, isolate the controllables, anticipate the chaos before it arrived. I could feel the pressure, trying to bend me, trying to make me take shortcuts, settle for good enough. But I didn't. I methodically created contingencies, recalculated probabilities, anticipated bottlenecks, and implemented a strategy that accounted for every foreseeable failure. And as the hours ticked past 3 a.m., I realized something extraordinary. The grind had trained me not just to work harder than anyone else. It had trained me to think differently, to see angles, risks, and opportunities in a vacuum of quiet, where others saw only darkness. By sunrise, the project was not just on track, it was optimized. The systems I built minimized errors, reduced time by half, and impressed leadership in a way that caught even me off guard. But the achievement wasn't external. The real victory was internal. I had faced a complex challenge, under maximum pressure, alone in the night, and emerged confident that the tools I honed in obscurity were enough to handle the world's highest stakes. Yet this success carried a hidden weight. Each victory under pressure didn't diminish the grind, it magnified it. It reminded me that every future challenge would demand more, that the only way to remain ahead was relentless iteration, continuous improvement, an absolute refusal to surrender. When the body or mind whispered enough, I began seeing the truth clearly. Success is not a moment. It is a practice. It is the accumulation of small victories, endured in isolation, perfected in the hours nobody notices. And in that clarity, a deeper, more provocative question emerged. If mastering your mind under pressure can produce results like this in one project, how far could you push yourself? If every day, every decision, every challenge were approached with the same intensity, focus, and relentless drive? After that night, I understood that endurance alone wasn't enough. The grind had given me skill. The mental rehearsal had sharpened my judgment. But the next step was scaling. How do you take the habits, the clarity, the precision, forged in midnight hours, and make them influence everything you touch? That's when I realized the true power of momentum. It doesn't come from one victory. It comes from relentless, repeated application of focus, discipline, strategy, until results compound beyond expectation. I started building routines that weren't just about surviving nights. They were about dominating them. I scheduled my days like a tactical operation. Early wake-ups for deep work, late nights for reflection, incremental experiments to improve systems, people, and processes. Every hour had purpose. Every task was measured. Every failure became data. I wasn't just working. I was engineering an unstoppable trajectory. One night, one decision, one relentless push at a time. The effects were exponential. Within months, projects that had taken weeks were completed in days. Systems I designed operated smoothly with minimal supervision. Opportunities one had once assumed were out of reach started coming to me. The world noticed. But more importantly, I noticed. The real transformation had already occurred inside me. I had cultivated a mindset that could see solutions where others saw obstacles, that could move decisively while others hesitated, that thrived in environments designed to crush the unprepared. Yet scaling momentum introduced its own challenges. The more capable I became, the higher the stakes, the faster the pace. Every inefficiency, every lapse in discipline, now had consequences, magnified by the velocity of progress. And I learned something vital. Growth isn't a straight line. It's a relentless test of endurance, intelligence, and will. The habits that sustained me in one project had to evolve for the next, and the next, and the one after that. Complacency was lethal. And then, I faced a moment that would define everything I had been building. A project of unprecedented complexity, with stakes that extended far beyond myself, requiring every ounce of focus, every learned skill, every mental and physical resource. I could feel the pressure before I even started. The weight of responsibility, the potential for failure, the clarity that this was no longer just a test of skill, but of character. The highest stakes test arrived quietly, yet it carried the weight of everything I had built. It wasn't dramatic at first. No alarms, no fanfare. Just a quiet evening, where a single decision could ripple through weeks of work. By 11:30 p.m., I was alone, reviewing plans, anticipating failures, calculating contingencies. The fatigue of months of midnight work pressed on my body. The mental strain, like invisible chains. But I knew one thing. This was the moment where preparation, discipline, endurance would either deliver or betray me. Every hour became a battlefield. Each choice demanded precision. I had trained for this in countless smaller crises. But the scale was different. Larger teams, bigger stakes, unpredictable variables. The kind of pressure that makes most people retreat. And yet, the lessons of the midnight grind held fast. The world rewards those who act decisively, while everyone else hesitates. Who maintain clarity, while chaos swirls. Who turn fear into strategy, instead of paralysis. By 2 a.m., problems arose that no one could have predicted. System errors, conflicting schedules, human mistakes, compounding like avalanches. Most would panic. I thrived. I leaned into the pressure, applied every method I had honed in silence, and executed solutions that were both creative and precise. By 4 a.m., the impossible was stabilized, the crisis mitigated, and the results were undeniable. The night proved something I had long suspected. Extreme effort, combined with extreme focus, produces results that feel almost supernatural, but only to those who aren't willing to witness the hours that birthed them. And yet, with victory came introspection. Each test, each sleepless night, each relentless push forced me to ask, what is the cost of this relentless pursuit? Every success exacts a price. Time, relationships, comfort. The simple joys most people take for granted. And I realized something chilling. Mastery demands sacrifice. And the higher the stakes, the greater the personal toll. Are you willing to pay the price? To operate at a level most never imagine? That night also revealed a deeper truth. The grind, the discipline, the mental endurance. They are tools, not the destination. What you build with them, the systems, the influence, the life you create, defines whether the sacrifices were worth it. But if mastery is measured by results, then the question becomes unavoidable. Once you've endured the unendurable, solved the impossible, and outlasted the world, how do you keep going? When the next mountain rises even higher? After surviving the highest stakes night, I realized the next challenge wasn't another crisis. It was sustaining relentless performance over the long haul. One extraordinary night can prove your capability, but a lifetime of impact demands consistency. I had learned to push, to grind, to endure. But now the question became, how do you maintain this level of intensity without breaking down, without losing sight of purpose, without burning out entirely? I built systems for myself that became non-negotiable. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, reflection weren't luxuries. They were armor. Meditation and journaling sharpened the mind. Deliberate planning each evening and review each morning created a feedback loop that reinforced momentum. I structured every task so it served multiple purposes: skill building, problem solving, personal growth. Every night became both lab and battlefield, with measurable outcomes and lessons extracted. No matter the chaos, the real test of sustainability, however, came not in controlled environments, but in unpredictability. A surprise crisis could erupt in the middle of the night. A shipment delay, system error, team conflict. And I had to respond with the same calm precision I had learned in months of silent grinding. My body was fatigued, but my mind remained razor-sharp. And that is the difference between short-term hustle and long-term dominance. The ability to remain unstoppable, even when fatigue and adversity pile high. And yet, sustaining relentless drive revealed a deeper insight. Mastery is as much about choice as it is about endurance. Each day, each decision, you choose whether to act, to push, to improve, or to settle. Every night of work, every hour spent in quiet focus, every failure analyzed and corrected, compounded not only results, but character, momentum. I realized isn't just about output, it's about identity. Who you become in the hours nobody watches is who the world will see when the lights are on. But even as I mastered consistency, a provocative question emerged. If you can endure endlessly, execute flawlessly, and sustain momentum over years. What then? When the grind becomes second nature, when the body and mind have been trained to perform under any condition, what is the next frontier? For those who refuse limits, the frontier I reached wasn't about outworking others. It was about outlasting myself, shaping a life that left a mark beyond immediate results. By this stage, the midnight grind had transformed from a personal trial into a strategy for influence, for legacy. Every habit, every sleepless night, every crisis navigated alone had become a blueprint for what it means to operate at a level few dare to even imagine. I began looking at the broader picture. How could the discipline I honed in isolation ripple outward? How could the systems I perfected, the mental endurance I cultivated, the relentless pursuit of improvement, be applied to teams, organizations, and opportunities that mattered on a larger scale? That's when I realized the highest form of achievement isn't just personal success, it's the ability to elevate others while maintaining your own relentless momentum. Scaling this mindset was not easy. It required teaching, mentoring, leading without micromanaging, and maintaining my own standards while empowering others to rise to theirs. There were setbacks, miscommunications, failed initiatives, human error, but I approached every challenge like I had approached every night. Analyze, adapt, implement, reflect. Momentum became contagious. The habits I forged in silence became the backbone for teams, projects, and movements that could accomplish far more than I could alone. And yet, even in this expanded sphere, the grind demanded more than skill or leadership. It demanded courage. The courage to make decisions that mattered. The courage to act when others hesitated. The courage to take responsibility when failure struck. Every sleepless hour spent mastering myself translated directly into decisive action when stakes were high. That's the paradox. The quieter your training, the louder your results. The world may not notice the struggle, but it cannot ignore the outcome. But even with influence and momentum, a deeper question emerged. When the grind has transformed your life, when endurance, strategy, and vision have merged, what drives you next? How do you remain hungry, relentless, and uncompromising when the obstacles you once feared no longer intimidate you? The ultimate truth I discovered after years of midnight battles, relentless grind, and mental endurance is this: the real victory isn't in what you achieve, it's in who you become while achieving it. Every sleepless hour, every small victory, every failure corrected in silence, forged a version of myself that refuses limits, doubts, or excuses. By the time I reached this point, I understood that ambition is not a goal. It is a standard, a lifestyle, a relentless commitment to evolving beyond what you thought possible. I began measuring success, not by money, recognition, or titles, but by growth, impact, resilience, the habits of the night, the discipline, the preparation, the focus, the courage to act when everyone else sleeps, became the foundation, not just of personal achievement, but of a life others could look to. and be inspired by. I realize that legacy isn't built in comfort. It's built in the hours no one sees, in the decisions that feel impossible, in the sacrifices willingly made to reach a standard few dare to uphold. And here's the most powerful revelation. Once you master yourself in silence, once you endure what others won't, the world bends to your preparation. Opportunities align. Challenges become stepping stones. Influence grows. Not because you chase it, but because relentless execution attracts it. Every midnight, every hardship, every choice to persist compounds into a force that cannot be ignored. You start to realize your limits were never real. They were only the stories you told yourself until you proved otherwise. But mastery, I discovered, is a living challenge. There will always be new heights, greater pressure, higher stakes. Every day offers a new test. Can you sustain the drive? Refine your strategy and elevate not just yourself, but the people and systems around you? That is the ultimate question for anyone who chooses the path of relentless ambition. So here's what it comes down to. When the city sleeps, when every comfort whispers stop, do you rise? Do you claim the hours most waste? Build strength in the shadows and create a life defined by action rather than excuses? Because the ones who do are unstoppable, not just for a night, not just for a project, but for a lifetime. The grind never ends, and neither does your potential. The only question that remains, are you willing to step into the silence, embrace the struggle, and rise beyond every limit you once imagined?